name's Jennifer Ogden, and I'm from Montana, and I work with paper, and I do paper mache, I do collage, I do assemblage, and just in the last little while, I started sewing some sort of doll figures, doll bodies. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look. So when I was in college, I did a lot of drawing and painting. And I had a lot of irons in the fire. I had 3 part-time jobs. I was going to school, and just kind of unbidden, I started to do collage work. And as always, the price is right. You're just using things that come, for me, I use things that come in my mailbox almost exclusively, and things that people give me. But I don't want your big stack of National Geographics or anything, but you know, these were magazines that I had sort of a long-term subscription to, Vanity Fair, National Geographic, things like that, of my own. I really like the intimacy of security envelopes and things like that. And so fast forward from college, I became a K-12 art teacher, got married, had kids, kind of got away from my art making, but I was just active enough to be invited to be in a show called Cattle Call. And I'm not, you know, I've lived in the West all my life, but I've never, not that interested in cows until my colleague, our gym teacher at our school, she runs cattle in Montana, and she invited me out. And so I kind of got real interested in these animals. After that, I kind of would visit friends in the Bitterroot Valley, which is where I live, and a river runs through it, as always. And so I would just kind of like go take photographs of places, and my process is to create a grid, and then draw my picture large freehand, and then I just kind of look for you know, like textures, colors, patterns, things. I would go through magazines and look for things like that. And it's not necessarily like hair is hair, which it is sometimes, but it's also like, what does this remind me of? What texture am I looking for? And I'm totally divorced from like all of the wording in the magazines, but I also want to just say that I'm really, the sensory aspect of certain magazines, like, you know, Vanity Fair is like, they're good for jewels, jewel tones, and shiny blacks, and filmy whites, and like ocean blue. And then National Geographic is good for like rock texture and things like that. My first residence was up in Wisdom, Montana. It was for the Wild Montana, I'm sorry, which used to be the Wilderness Association. My grandparents were charter members of that. And so I really was excited to be part of that. And this is I was part of the second cohort for their art site on the Divide. And it was like anything that was on the Continental Divide would qualify for this, this thing. And this was in this place at Twin Lakes, which is a subalpine lake that's shaped like an hourglass. And so we kind of had this Forest Service cabin to ourselves, and we brought our neighbors. And so that's my husband on the right, and he had a permit in the Beaverhead National Forest to collect seeds and plants, because he grows them. He turns around and he grows them, and then he puts them back into disturbed sites. So my daughter's in the middle, and my little neighbor boy is like waiting. And I really, this was kind of like opened up this new world to me of place-based art. And so this is kind of how the sausage is made. It's more like a mosaic rather than overlapping things. And so I'm looking for like these paper brush strokes, and I'm painstakingly putting them together. I realized that when I was there, I was looking at the ground all the time, because my husband's a botanist, and he's like, look at this plant, look at this plant. And my friend's husband is a birder, and he's always like, look at that bird, look at that bird. And so my next series is called Looking Up, Looking Down. And so I'm kind of inspired by where I live in Hamilton, Montana, there's a really abrupt interface between homes and wild areas. This happens to be a floodplain around the Bitterroot River. And so like the cold cobble, the cobblestones on the right, it was just a kind of an icy walk that I was taking. And you know, you're always fascinated by wet rocks. And when you're by the river, you're always like looking down at the ground. But when you look up in that same area, you're kind of underneath these cottonwoods, and you're kind of sheltered. You're sheltered by them. This is that same floodplain area. This is the biggest one I've done, and it's like half again as big as this screen. But it was just the fall, and I just wanted to kind of like expand my ability to work big. And so this is a place that I go a lot and that I have a lot of affection for. And so this kind of, I wanted it to be like a little bit more spontaneous. And what I did was I did a big active watercolor prior to the drawing, and then I kind of matched my colors and textures and patterns after that. This is Rattlesnake Creek, where I grew up in Missoula, Montana. And so I have a lot of connection to that site. And I told the kids, because it was an art camp, I said, hey, we're gonna make some gravity sculptures, and I'd like for you to pick some things up off the ground that you can balance or stack. You can't use glue. Gravity is your glue, and you can't pick anything that's live. But I would like for you to kind of make a sculpture. And as soon as I said that, the kids just like experienced their environment in such a tactile way, and they're tuned into that space in a way that was just incredible. And then they made this like little circle. They made this like funny little circle, and it just like moved me a lot. I do a lot of paper mache. I sell a lot of paper mache actually. And the one on the right was for a play, The Bison. And it was, Ivan Doig is our big Western author in Montana. And a friend of mine was like creating a play that was based on The Bartender's Tale. And there's this character of a bison, a one-eyed bison, that's in this bar, the Medicine Lodge. And so I was asked to make that bison piece, and it's all magazine and so on and so forth. I was in a residency last summer at the Western Montana Fair, and that's where the sheep image comes from. And the alligator is kind of a personal thing, because I learned about Egyptologists and their unwrapping of a crocodile mummy. And what they found inside, which really pleased me a lot, was papyrus mache. And so they're from the scrap heaps of scribes and letters, grocery lists, literature. This is from a quote, and it was done 2 different times, The Fox and the Hedgehog. The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. And these are survival strategies. The fox tries a lot of different things, sometimes fails, but they have fun, you know, they have a sense of humor, they're opportunistic, all that. The hedgehog plans ahead, and they have one strategy. They play dead, right? It's a good strategy. It's one thing that they can do, but the fox tries many things. So on the left is my son. For the first time that I did this theme, my son was in college. He changed his major like 4 times. And so this is called Becoming the Fox right here. And the one on the right we did a redux. My friend and I did a redux of this theme, and I was thinking more about Aesop's fables and this woodland space where there's like one of each animal. And what I learned from reading Aesop was that these animals with very different strategies, they're not enemies. They're neighbors. They're able to kind of discuss things. And so I depicted these two characters in a kind of an illustration type way. This was one, I really like this one because it was done with vintage ephemera. In the Bitterroot Valley, at one time they had a lot of farming, and the people that farmed, they had to buy these little tickets to keep the ditch going. And so a friend of mine has an original 10 acres from that whole thing, and he gave me some squash. And so I like this one a lot because I did it live. I didn't do it from a photograph. I did it live, and I just feel a lot more connected to it. And that's it. That's all I have.